Hello friends, and welcome to the next challenge in my set of Opentoonz animation challenges over on my Discord server. And if you're not a member yet, you can find an invite link to join in the description below. And these challenges are to be completed in order, so when you've completed the previous challenges, this one will be available. And the series of challenges with the bouncing ball continues. And so far in this set of challenges, we've looked at the spacing for a moving ball to speed up and slow down and bounce at a realistic pace. And so far we've worked on bouncing on flat surfaces. Well, today I'd like to look at bouncing the ball off angled surfaces. And today I'm working with Tahoma, which is built off the core code of Opentoonz. And if you want details on this, see the link below. So if I draw the path of a ball bouncing off a horizontal surface at right angles to it, then the ball bounces back in the same direction. And if it bounces off the horizontal surface at an angle, then it bounces off at the same angle. And you can see this if I had a 90-degree line, one at right angles to the surface. So the angle of the ball bouncing away, A, is the same as the angle of the ball when it bounces onto the floor, B. But if that surface itself is at an angle, then the angle it bounces off won't be the same. The bounce angle will be increased because of gravity acting on it, pulling it down. And the speed that the ball bounces into it will also affect the angle it bounces off. The faster the ball moves, the closer the outgoing angle is to the incoming angle. So that's the challenge today. I'd like to have your ball fly into the screen and bounce off at least 3 angled surfaces, losing speed each time. And it can either bounce off out of the screen at the end or just stop on the floor. And I'd like the pace looking as realistic as possible, and the path of the ball looking as realistic as possible. And I'd much prefer to see your ball in sketch form again. I don't want to see perfect circles using the geometry tool or overdrawn neatly. Because I'll offer critique on the challenge entries, so you might have to change parts or redraw whole sections. And doing so with a sketch is less of a problem. You'll have less time invested into the animation. So keep all of this in mind as you work on your entry. So the first thing to do is to decide on where the surfaces are and what path your ball will follow. So I'll add a level for the path and draw that. And that'll inform me of where I need to add the surfaces, and at what angle. Remember, the pace of the ball bouncing off will determine the angle, so each bounce will lose some momentum, so the angle bouncing off the surface has to be greater than the one hitting the surface. So if I add a line between the bouncing angles, with the bounce off being larger, I can then add a line perpendicular to this, which will tell me where the surface is. So instead of adding a line directly between the bouncing in and out, I want it to be nearer to the bouncing in. So this angle here is smaller than this angle here. So now I've got this line, I can draw another line at 90 degrees to this. Approximately there. And you may notice I'm drawing straight lines while using the brush tool. And that's one of the features of Tahoma. By holding the Shift key, I can draw straight lines in any direction. So on this second angle, again, I want the angle to be larger as the ball falls down. So a 90-degree surface to that would look something like that. And for the third one, something like that. And the fourth one, and I want the surfaces to look like actual objects, not just lines. So I'll add them on a vector level, so I can adjust them afterwards. And we'll do that by clicking the new level button above the timeline, changing the type to vector level, and then entering a name. So I'll add the surfaces as rectangles, then deform them using the control point editor. And I'll make sure that the point where the ball bounces is in the middle of the shape. So choosing the geometry tool, I'm in rectangle mode, and I'll draw a rectangle on screen, I change to the control point editor here on the left on the toolbar, select on the shape, and then I'll adjust each of the corners so that the shape is at the same angle as the surface that I've sketched, but by adding some perspective to them, they'll look like they're physical shapes sitting in a real world. And let's add another, and again we'll adjust the shape, and the final two. And because these are vector shapes, we can always adjust them later. So next, before we add the balls, I'll adjust the transparency of the path by clicking on the arrow to the left of the column on the timeline, and then we'll change the opacity to make it lower so it's dimmer, and I'll change the colour to add a tint of dark yellow, just so it stands out a little bit different to the rest of the drawings. Okay, then clicking back on frame 1, I'll create a new level for the ball. And then we'll extend the path and these surface shapes to last for a number of frames, and I'm sure I'll need to adjust that later, but that's fine for now. So on the ball level, we'll add a new palette entry, and I'll use the raster pencil again, and then using the brush tool, we'll add the first set of keys. And that is at the points where the ball bounces on each of these surfaces. Bearing in mind the principle of squash and stretch, so the ball squashes when it hits the surface, but it squashes less on the final surface as it's lost some power. So we'll also have a key as the ball comes into the room here. And then using the principles of acceleration and deceleration, I'll add the in-betweens between these first two keys. And there's only a couple of frames here, so there's not a lot to see. So I'll immediately work on the second bounce from this first surface through to the second. Okay, so even though I was flipping through the images and looking at the onion skins as I added them, now they're all added, I can see the flow of all of the balls moving. So even though it looks okay, I'll make some adjustments to fine tune the position of them. And I strongly suggest that you do the same. It'll help weed out any strange changes in speed and position that you've put in. So it's just a case of drawing the in-betweens, reviewing as I go, then playing it afterwards to get a feel for the whole movement, and to check that the speed of each section makes sense after the previous section. Remember, the ball will be slowing down a little as it moves through the path. So once I've got a feeling for the pacing of this section, I'll show all of the onion skins for the section, between the keys, and then adjust those, ironing out any speed inconsistencies and checking that the ball not only follows the path, but all of the balls follow each other. It's easy to draw the ball wobbling along a path. Well, this is the time to fix that up. And then I just continue with the other in-betweens between the next set of keys. So that's this challenge completed for me. And here's my finished animation. And I don't think I've quite got the speed of the ball right, but it's a good start. And to make it slightly more dramatic, I changed the angle of the surfaces to point more upwards and to give the ball's path more of a curve. So, assuming you've completed the previous challenges and have access to this challenge channel on the Discord server, you just need to export this as a GIF with the white background and then upload it to the challenges channel. So good luck with the challenge. I hope you can take part. I look forward to seeing your entries. And I'll be back soon with another video, so join me then. And subscribe and hit that bell to not miss it. And I'll see you next time for another challenge. And that's a Darren Tea.